Hello and welcome to the Coaching Crowd podcast with me, Jo Wheatley, and my friend and co-host Zoe Hawkins.
Hi, everybody. Great to be back for another episode. And this week we're talking about the different trends in the coaching industry and some predictions around what is going to happen in the future of this particular industry. And the reason why we're talking about this is, well, firstly, it's been requested by our members in the coaching crowd. And also, I think as people are thinking about coaching and whether they come and train as a coach, it's useful to understand a little bit about the industry that you want to be a part of. So we're going to share with you some of our own sort of thoughts and reflections around what's happening, and also, from what we've seen in parts of the discussions that we've been a part of as well.
So the first place to start is in terms of trends, we are seeing a continued growth or explosion in the demand for coaching services. And I think part of that is driven by the times that we're in and the incredible amount of change that we're experiencing in lots of different aspects of our lives. And we aren't really educated as well as we could be around how do we emotionally, strategically navigate change, and coaching can be a really great support and help when we are going through transitions.
Yeah, and I think it's got a ripple effect, hasn't it? So, if I experience great coaching, I go and tell a number of people, oh my gosh, I've been working with my coach on this. It's been amazing, and there is a ripple effect to coaching that is still growing. Like, we live in a fairly, I was going to say fairly developed market for coaching, but actually the UK market is still growing phenomenally. America's a very developed market, but there are areas of Europe where coaching is still in its infancy. So actually that spread, when you look at geography and in terms of how coaching can penetrate the rest of the world, there's a huge amount of geography left where coaching still has yet to really take hold and enter. And I think it's not just coaching as a service, it's that whole personal development industry and market as well. So yes, we see growth in coaching, but you'll also see growth in things like personal fitness and therapy and lots of other areas as well, as people become more enlightened to the options of what is possible out there to help them to lead the life that they want to have. So I think absolutely, Jo, seeing the continued growth of the coaching industry makes a great time to be a part of the industry. It's definitely not at a saturation point.
And part of what's fueling the growth is also, I think, the democratization of coaching. So what I mean by that is seeing coaching digitalized. I can coach from where I live here in the UK. I can coach people in all different countries around the world, which I do, and can access different time zones. But also organizations that are securing coaching contracts at scale, which enables them to provide coaching at a lower cost than you might traditionally engage a coach with. And part of the democratization is also therefore about providing access to coaching to the whole workforce, rather than, if we wind the clock back 10, 20 years, coaching would be reserved for those probably at the very top levels of an organization that were seen to have the most influence and therefore the most potential for return from the investment in coaching. And instead, we're now recognizing leadership at all levels. And that's fantastic. That's fantastic for the individual, for the team, for the organization.
I think also the generations that are coming through to the workforce now compared to, I guess when we were entering the workforce, I certainly didn't know what coaching wasn't really aware of personal development. That was introduced to me once I got into the workplace. But I think the generations that are coming through now, where they have exposure to lots of personal development content already through their social media channels, they're a lot more aware of that desire for a life well lived. They're demanding it. And I think that's fueling the democratization as well of coaching and the ability to access those services much earlier on in their career. I think organizations, as well, as they look at the talent shortage, certainly in some careers, it's how do you make your organization as attractive as possible to those that are coming through. And I think really investing in people's development is one way that they can bring people into their organization as opposed to perhaps others. So I think the support that people have for career growth and personal and professional growth is fueling the growth of coaching at that end of the spectrum too.
And we're seeing organizations actively investing in exploring what would a coaching culture look like for us, and how would we be able to develop that so that it's not a course that people go on, it's not a one-to-one relationship that people have, or a team over here have a coach working with them, but instead it's about how we are together with each other in our organization. It's the way we do things around here, not only when people are watching but when they're not watching as well. So recognizing the huge value and potential in relationships, and that isn't a one size fits all, as we've talked about before. That needs, careful work, consideration, and it takes time to build that. But it's also relevant to how you can underrepresented groups within organizations, and providing greater access to support to people that need it and want it.
We've certainly seen a huge growth in leaders coming on our programs, haven't we? And those leaders, not necessarily to become a coach in their organization, but just to be the best leader that they can be, in recognizing that, teams are complex and are requiring agile leadership skills, and coaching is a great skill to add to that leadership. And that is really part of developing that coaching culture. Organizations are supportive of leaders who want to take that development path. And also we have those who are coming on coaching training to become an internal coach, to support very actively the growth of a coaching culture by being able to offer coaching services, internal. So you've got the companies that buy coaching contracts at scale and offer that out. And then you've also got organizations who are training and nurturing their own internal pools of coaches, pools of coaches who can help and support people within the workplace. And I think that piece you mentioned about diversity is really important. So there's a huge movement at the moment, and has been for many years, in terms of recognizing the talent that diverse workforces can bring in. And I think coaching is in an ideal situation to be able to help and support people from those underrepresented groups to share their voice and step out and help them to really grow and nurture their careers. We still need to invite a number of different cultures and diversities into the coaching industry so that everybody can see themselves in the coaches that they get to choose from.
Absolutely. It's really important that we see that. And we love the richer the people, the diversity of people that come on our programs, the better it is for the development of all coaches, and the better it is for access to coaching, and, as you say, people being able to find a coach that is a great fit for them. And I think on top of the diversity of coaching, we also have this growing trend around coaches thinking about, what is the role that I play in the world? What is the legacy that I'm part of creating as a coach? Do I have a role when it comes to climate change and the conversations that I have in my coaching? Likewise with diversity, and lots of coaches in our coaching crowd are asking questions around, what is my role with this? Do I have a role? And that isn't an easy question to answer, and maybe there isn't an exact answer to that. But so I think probably more experimentation with coaching. And we talk a lot about there not being necessarily fixed lines between different things. Life isn't as simple and straightforward as that. There are lots of overlaps with coaching and other activities.
It's interesting you say that, because I think we've seen some great work come through the EMCC around climate change coaching. A number of the coaching bodies looking at, where does coaching play a role in some of the big problems that the world has to face. And I was chatting to a coach mentor just this week, and they've developed a coaching program for the Indigenous population of Canada. So really some trailblazing work, I would say, in coaching is a trend that I'm seeing, like looking at how can you use coaching in areas where it hasn't been able to be used before. And coaching is so powerful for helping people to find themselves, discover themselves, discover their power and their confidence. That I think there's lots of different areas where coaching is yet to have an impact. And so I think, as you say, experimentation, absolutely. Courage, I would say, is another place. And collaboration, I think, is probably another trend I'm seeing, of coaches coming together in really inspiring ways to recognize that collaboration over competition is the best way forward. So it's an exciting time, I think, to be watching the industry and where we're starting to see coaching pop up.
And of course, AI, if we think about the future, there are people experimenting around different ways to incorporate AI to accelerate the impact, increase the impact of coaching. So whether that's me as a coach, my avatar, meeting my coachee's avatar, rather than us staring at each other over a Zoom screen, or other creative ways to enter into or to differentiate a coaching relationship, and being open-minded to that. So there's experimentation happening there. We know a lot of coaches are using platforms like Voxer, so doing coaching via messaging, where people are a bit fatigued by staring at screens through the day, or actually they want more just-in-time coaching. And I think I'm seeing that as well, that demands, because the demands on people are so intense at the moment, that they're wanting more regular coaching rather than traditionally maybe they'd have a longer session once a month.
I build on that, actually, because obviously we, in our coaching qualifications, we teach about 6 transformational coaching sessions across typically a 6-month period on one specific goal. But actually, we do work with a number of clients, particularly senior and executive clients, where the coaching doesn't quite look the same. Like, those clients, they don't need to do more. It's not about the goal, achieving the next big thing. It's a little bit more around well-being and holding space and checking in and providing, a container to be able to just talk out the different ideas. Thought partnership, I guess, is what I'm saying. So coaching, it's not pure all the time with certain populations. And I think that's useful to recognize as a bit of a trend, and being able to step into that space, obviously know where you're working on that coaching and mentoring continuum, but recognizing that actually some clients will want something different from you as their coach. And so the emphasis is always back to contracting.
Yeah, but I'm also seeing trends around greater flexibility in coaching. So whereas traditionally, if you cancel your coaching session within 24 hours, then you lose that coaching session, or you'd need to pay for an extra one. And the rigidity around that, which has obviously good reasons around it. You've got limited time in your diary. You can't see another client if that's been held for an existing client. But I think the nature of work as it is now, with increase, COVID, for example, taking people out on sick leave for long periods of time, and other things like that. And also when we look at people in senior roles, their diaries aren't like that, and that accepting that there are things that trump the coaching because they're part of a stakeholder group that can only all get their diaries together at that time. So as coaches, we have to make a call around what is our position around the relationship that we have with our coachee, and are we prepared to offer that degree of flexibility. What I'm seeing is an increased demand, or benefit at least, to being able to be more flexible in those ways with the client.
Yeah, I think that also blends into the environment and location. So I remember when we started out coaching, there was an absolute expectation where you go to the office to meet your coachee in their place of work, and that is where the coaching takes place. Now, that's incredibly different. So we do now a lot of virtual coaching. As you said, we coach people all around the world. Doesn't matter really where they are, but actually, even when I'm coaching people all around the world, they are often in their own homes, doing the coaching from their place. And I think it does, or can certainly, influence the openness of the coachee to be able to bring their whole life into that coaching space. And then you see the growth of things like outdoor coaching, so coaching doesn't actually have to be Zoom to Zoom, both of you in your home. You can take the phone and go and travel, go and walk through the woods or wherever you might need to be. And so I think that blends into that flexibility you were talking about there. Is there's no one way to do coaching anymore. It's absolutely down to what you as the coach want, in terms of your own practice, but also what's the coachee looking for, because they've got so much choice and variety now in the sorts of coaches that they work for. And whilst niching has always been a thing, we're seeing some really interesting niches, pop up around how coaches choose to market themselves and what they offer to different clients. So, from a coachee perspective, from a client perspective, I think that's a great way to be able to have so much choice available to you.
Absolutely. And also, as we get more awareness of, different individuals' needs, I think that's where a lot of niches can come out of, and people thinking, actually, I think I've got something to offer and serve that particular market. And it might be when people don't have the answers, but there's a willingness to explore and learn together around how to coach and be together as coach and coachee in those new areas.
I guess also on that, there are coachees who are self-funding. So I think a lot of what we talked about originally around the democratization of coaching, I think originally a lot of coaching would have taken place in-house, corporations funding coaching for their leaders. Whereas now the personal coaching market has seen huge growth, and people, I know we're entering into some austere times, but generally speaking, people are more ready to invest in their own growth outside of their organization, because they're starting to see the value in where that goes. So, that I think will only continue, even if as we enter into this sort of austerity, there will still be parts of the population that working through that want to invest in themselves, and others who will be thinking and planning for that at a time when they're able to do so. So I think that's a useful trend to be aware of when you're thinking about entering coaching, is it's not all about organizations. There's actually many people who would be looking for that support directly for themselves as well.
And we see pretty much a 50-50 split on our coaching training programs, 50% organizationally funded and about 50% self-funding. And as I'm sitting here looking at my list of coachees at the moment, and I would say it's about a 60% organizationally funded, about 40% self-funded. So you're seeing a similar kind of dynamic in those areas as well. And of course, sometimes you coach people when their organization is funding them, and then they may come back to you at a future time and self-fund. They may or may not be with the same organization at that particular point. So I think overall what we're seeing is there's a space for everybody within the coaching industry. And if you don't see what you want to see in the coaching industry at the moment, then you have the opportunity to come into the industry and create the change that you want to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is so much what is it, availability to get involved. The coaching bodies, they're very open. We've volunteered for them before, but actually if you see opportunities, you're saying there, for change, and you're seeing creative ways to get involved, like the climate change, like different coaching qualifications for diverse populations, actually come and spearhead something, come into the industry, get to know it, approach the different coaching bodies with different ideas, form a collaboration, take some ideas forward. It's an exciting time. We talked about doing an episode around your growth as a coach. What's the career trajectory for you as a coach? And actually, I think that's part of it, is coming up with your own ideas in terms of how you want to trailblaze in the industry. And I know for us, that's about our emotions coaching practitioner training, where we've seen a gap in the market where coaches don't necessarily have full confidence to be able to coach emotions or know what to do when emotions come up. And so we're really leaning into that space of emotions. And for any coaches that come through in the industry, the trend is that you have a license for creativity to be able to see the gaps, plug them, and and bring your passions to life through this coaching opportunity as well.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, the emotions work that we're so passionate about and working on right now, we've also seen an increase in inquiries around coaching young people. So I would say that is a huge that's a prediction, if you like, for the future, that is going to become bigger and bigger. I'm a mum of two boys, school age, and they've both been through like an emotions program at school that all of the children in the class do, and actually they really enjoyed that. And I think there is a demand there, and we know that a lot of young people have struggled through lockdown and the increased feelings of isolation and anxiety and all sorts of emotions that they experience, and most people feel ill-equipped to deal with that. And even as coaches, Zoe and I, chatting as mums rather than as coaches, being a parent is really intense at times, and it's easy to feel under-resourced to deal with the challenges, and as the children grow, and the boundaries and the testing and the behavior, and trying to find that place of understanding and how to support. So I think that is a huge growth market. I think the challenge is around the funding. So we think about, coaching young people, but also maybe think about coaching parents. And the question obviously that often comes up is, do I need to do a specialist qualification to be able to coach in particular niche groups, or is it enough for me to do a generic coaching qualification? And I think those are the places where it's hard to find an exact answer, and where people can feel nervous about stepping into those areas through fear of being challenged. But that definitely is a prediction for the future.
So hopefully we've given you some ideas around trends, predictions, our own thoughts and opinions around what's happening here in the coaching industry and where things might go. If you're thinking now is a good time for you to get involved, and do come and check out our courses on our website, igcompany.co.uk.